Aloha, Miss Rita and Camryn D. This is a very special edition of Sergeant Dorsey Speaks. I wanted to come and have a personal conversation with you, Camryn D, and just say thank you for selecting me as your subject matter expert, if you will, in your advocacy unit. I was so excited when I received the email from Miss Rita letting me know that you had chosen me, and she also included the letter that you had written to me about who I am and what I do and why I do it. And so I'm going to address those questions that you had in your email. I will address them in an email response to you, but I'm also going to do it here because I thought it might be fun if Miss Rita could share this YouTube video with your classmates. And I thought it would be more personal, right? So here we go, Camryn. One of the things that you wanted to know is, was it very difficult for me, and did I have any issues or any doubts with writing my book? No, Camryn, I didn't. I wrote my autobiography, Black and Blue, The Creation of a Manifesto, in 2013, and that was volume 1. I wrote that book because there was something that had happened here in Los Angeles, California that caused me to want to tell my story and help other police officers who might be struggling with issues as it relates to being a minority and being a police officer. I had been both, and I had honorably retired, and I wanted to help not only police officers but family members of police officers understand the stress and the trials and tribulations that we deal with day in and day out. Might be helpful to know what your loved one is going through. And so that was the genesis and the nexus for me writing volume 1, Black and Blue, The Creation of a Manifesto. And then in 2014, there were a spate of deadly police incidents beginning in July with Eric Garner in New York, who was choked by a police officer, and then in Ferguson, Missouri, Mike Brown was shot and killed. And here in Los Angeles, a young man by the name of Ezell Ford was shot and killed by LAPD officers. And so I'm watching parents on the news not really have the words to say when someone would ask them, if you could speak to the police officers or the police chief, what would you say? And they really didn't have the words. And so I realized then that I had gone through everything that I had gone through on the LAPD so that I could be that voice. I wanted to give them the words to ask. I wanted to give them instruction, if you will, with regards to what to do going forward, not only for that family, but for future families, so that we don't have another Mike Brown. But then we did. We had 12-year-old Tamir Rice, who was shot and killed playing in the park, and we had John Crawford, who was shot and killed while he was shopping in a Walmart, picked up an air gun that was for sale in the Walmart, and officers responded and shot and killed him. And there are many names that I can give you since 2014, and so things don't seem to be getting any better. Then I decided that I needed to revise my book and give a little more instruction, a little more help to family members and to young people like you, Camryn, so that you know what to do when the police stop you, so that you know how to comport yourself when you encounter the police. Because listen, young people, if you try to hold court curbside with the police, because sometimes police officers are given information that you don't know we're being given, and when we respond and we interact and we engage with you, and I understand that there are officers who sometimes are not very nice, but it's still your affirmative responsibility to follow a police officer's orders. And so I wanted to speak to that part of the equation, what it is you should do to try to survive that police encounter. And so I revised my book and came out with a volume 2, Black and Blue, The Creation of a Social Advocate. And in Black and Blue, The Creation of a Social Advocate, I talk about the kinds of things that I think, as a police officer and a police supervisor, having done that job for 20 years and wore the uniform the entire time, I know what police officers will do when you don't follow their instruction. And so I sat down and I wrote that book initially. Very quickly, I was able to write it in 8 days, Camryn, because I was just telling you about my life and my own experiences. And I wanted people to understand what it looked like when you join a predominantly male white major metropolitan police department like the Los Angeles Police Department and you look like me. I wanted people to understand that. But at the same time, I also want folks to know that that's a great occupation to have. And I believe that the problems that we're seeing internally on police departments will only change when we have like-minded police officers. And so if there's anyone out there that's listening to me, any of your classmates who aspire or have an interest to be in law enforcement, I say go for it. Because if you want change to happen, you have to be part of that change. And while there are many, many problems, and I will acknowledge and admit that, and there's not one thing that will fix this problem, joining the police department is one. I know you guys are just middle schoolers and it'll be a few years, but when you get old enough to vote, voting is important because you need to have people in places of authority who value your life, who value your thoughts, and joining a police department, voting for like-minded folks is part of the puzzle. So I just wanted to say again, thank you. I want to be brief. I'm hoping Miss Rita will share this with the class if I don't go on too long. And I wanted to say thank you again, Camryn, for selecting me. I really appreciate that. And Miss Rita, if there's ever an opportunity for me to come and speak to the student body and talk to all of the young people there in your middle school about how best to comport themselves to make sure that they survive the police encounter, well, you know how to reach me. You've got my information. And for any of you who want to hear what I have to say, I have a weekly podcast and a weekly YouTube channel that I upload videos every Wednesday. Sergeant Dorsey Speaks. That's my YouTube channel. Sergeant Dorsey Speaks is also my podcast platform. And you can subscribe and you can listen and follow and see what I have to say about trends that are occurring nationally, events that are occurring. I speak to police events, police trials, and just anything that I think might be helpful. So Sergeant Dorsey Speaks is my podcast. You can find me on iHeart, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts. Thank you again, Miss Rita. Thank you so much, Camryn D, for selecting me. I am honored and humbled, and I hope that we may have an opportunity to see one another sometime in the very near future. So until next time, you guys, be good and be safe.